Good morning. Today's lesson we are going to look a little bit more at graphing exponential functions and how the graph looks depending on the equation. We are going to use Desmos today, so either going to your desktop and finding the Desmos graphing site, or there's an app that you can get on your phone. Either will work, okay, but you will need to use this for the practice today. Okay, so I'll just have that open kind of in the background for when we get there. Okay. So we're going to start by looking at these two different functions. So I've got y is equal to 2 to the power of x and y is equal to 3 times 2 to the power of x. First, I just want to note that we know that this is exponential growth. Okay, so we know that the graph is going to be going up to the right. Okay, and we know that because the base value, the 2, is bigger than the number 1. Okay, so we know that the graphs are going to be kind of this shape here. Okay, instead of taking out your calculators and punching all of these numbers in, I'm going to show you a way to do this using Desmos. Okay. So when you click on the side here, you can type in an equation. So if I type in y is equal to 2 to the power of x, to get to the power of, I hit Shift and 6, the little up arrow, all right, will get me into the exponent. Okay, so I've got a graph of y is equal to 2 to the power of x here. It looks great. I knew that it was going to be growth because the base is 2. But I'd like it to be a table of values. You can edit your list, okay, and then it will turn this into a table of values for you. Okay, so now it goes from -2 to 2. So we can go back here and fill in from -2 to 2. So this was 0.25, 0.5, anything to the power of 0 is 1, 2, 4. Now our table goes a little bit further, and that's fine. You either can leave it blank, or if you type in numbers into your table, it'll actually just give you what they are. So if I type in -3 and 3, it tells me what the y values are. So I can add those in. So this was 0.125 and 8. All right, so now I've got this first part of the table filled in. I want to graph this second one and compare the two. All right, so I'm going to go back to Desmos. I'm going to create a new equation, so just click below, and then I can type in my equation. So it's 3 times 2 to the power of up arrow x. Okay, and again, I want to make this a table of values. All right, so I've got my y values here. I'm just going to copy them over into this table before I move on. So this was 0.75, 1.5, 3, 6, 12. Now I can go back and type in the -3 and +3, or I can kind of notice what the pattern is, right? So because there's this 3 out front, it's actually taking all of these values and multiplying them by 3. So I can figure that out, that this is going to be 375, and this down here is going to be 24. Okay, so that's just recognizing the pattern between the two. You could have also gone back, clicked in here, and typed in the other values. Okay, so now I want to actually look at the graphs, and I want to see kind of what's similar, what's different about these two graphs. I think I've asked specific questions here. Okay, so what do you notice about the y-intercept in each graph, and which part of the equation changes the y-intercept? So let's just kind of make a little note over here. So for the first one, y is equal to 2 to the power of x. My y-intercept is when x is 0, right? So it's this point here, or going to my graph, I click on the y-axis to see where it crosses. Remember, this is the y-axis here. Okay, so my y-intercept is the point 0, 1. Okay, the second equation, so 3 times 2 to the power of x. My y-intercept for this one, again, y-intercept happens when x is equal to 0. So when x is 0, my y is 3. So 0, 3. Or looking at the graph, where does it cross this line? At 3 here. Okay, so from the equation, so what part of the equation changes the y-intercept? Hopefully we can see that it's the number in front of your base number. So here I've got a 3, which makes my y-intercept 3. And here there is no number in front, but what could I put in front to make it, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I could put a 1 in front, right? And that would not change anything, because anything multiplied by 1 is itself. Okay, so the 1 there is the 1 here. We just don't write leading ones. Okay, so the number out front is the y-intercept. Alright, so now just looking from an equation, we should be able to determine what the y-intercept will be based on this information. Okay, I want to look at another type of graph, very similar, but this time it's 1/2 to the power of x and 3 times 1/2 to the power of x. I know because I remember last week's lessons that these are going to be exponential decay. Alright, so my graph is going to look like this. Alright, and I know that because the base number is a fraction or a decimal between 0 and 1. Alright, so I'm going to graph both of them. I'll get my equations back out here. I'll just delete those two. I'm going to type them both in at once just to save a little time. So y is equal to 1/2 to the power of x. Let's please make that a table. And then again, y is equal to, we're going to put a 3 out front. 1/2 to the power of x. And again, I would like a table. Okay, so now I've got my two tables. I can come back to my note here and fill in these values. So I think it said this was 4, 2, 1, 0.5, 0.25, and then I recognize the numbers from up top. So the 3 is 0.125, and the 4 is 8. Okay, the 3 out front again just means that we're going to take all of these values and multiply them by 3, or we can refer back to the table here where it has the numbers for us. Okay, so here we've got 24, 12, 6, 3, 1.5, 0.75, and 0.375. Okay, so if we're talking about y-intercepts again, okay, the y-intercept here is 1 when x is 0. Okay, that's a 1, not a 6. Maybe I'll make that look more like, or sorry, a 0. Here. Okay, and then the y-intercept over here is 0, 3. So we can graph it and figure out where it crosses the y-axis to determine our y-intercepts. Or we can look at the equation and notice the number out front is also your y-intercept. Okay, that's really all I want you to do today, is just kind of play around with Desmos, looking at the graphs. What's the similar about these graphs? Well, they have the same shape, they're both going down, but the main difference here is your y-intercept. Okay, so today's practice looks like this. I want you to graph 1 and 2 together, calculate the ratios. So remember the ratio here is y2 divided by y1. Alright, and then tell me what's similar and what is different about these two graphs, okay? And then it's the same thing for 3 and 4, except your graphs will look a little different. Okay, so try those out. I will post the solutions later on today.